This video is going to be about the Tailor's Tack and making your marks using Tailor's Tacks. It is portfolio sample 10B, and for this sample you will need 2 8x9 pieces of your woven. Again, this is woven from what you cut earlier at the beginning of the semester. Woven samples. We're going to learn it on woven, not on a big piece of your knit. I think you have the woven around better. We will transfer it to knit in just a little bit. Then you're going to need a piece of lightweight paper. Now this is a piece of my patterning adjustment paper, like the medical exam paper, but you could use a regular piece of printing paper, or if you have some tissue paper, something that is not super heavy, because we are going to make some stitches through this by hand, so you want to have that. Then you're going to need a pencil. However, so you can see mine showing up, you're going to see me using an ink pen, but you really want to use a pencil for this. And you're going to need a scissors or snips, like I have here. You're going to need some thread that is contrast to your fabric, like when we did all the other samples. Make sure you have a contrast thread. And then we're going to need a hand sewing needle, and I have a bunch of them here. The one that I'm going to use is this one. It's nice and long. It is fairly small as far as its diameter. You want it to be small. You don't want to be choosing something that is this big and thick or size around. So I'm going to use this one for demonstration. You might want to actually get to the point where you're using one for this kind of marking, something more like this thin. It still has a large eye in it, but it is more delicate and protects your fabric from getting large holes or punctures in it. But for the sake of this demonstration, I'm going to use this needle here. And then you're going to need your clear ruler, okay? Your marking ruler. First, take the piece of paper that you have, and it should represent this 8x9. And so having the 9-inch or the longer side, it does need to be at least 9 inches, whatever you're using, and 8 inches wide to really make this a meaningful experience for you to use it. So I want you to, in the middle of the paper, and it doesn't have to be exact, just make sure it's as close to the middle as it is. Don't put it over here, don't put it over here. But in the middle of the paper, I'm going to draw a dashed line. Not a solid line, a dashed line. And again, I'm using pen so that you can see my work. Okay. There, he's barely showing up even at that, isn't it? Maybe I need to put, well, when we put it on top of the fabric, it will show up. That's for sure. And I could do that right now. I don't suggest that you do this on top of fabric, but it'll show up better for you right now and seeing it. That's the first line that we're laying down. Now we're going to draw a pseudo, and I say pseudo or fake dart because it will have the parts of a dart. It just won't have the correct end on the dart. And you'll know that when we start marking our dart on the hoodie in just a little while. So on this practice, we're not going to sew a dart. We're actually just going to mark a dart. So I want you to put your 2-inch ruler then right on top of the dashed line that you did. And down here at this end of the paper, this is the base of the dart, and I want you to put 2 marks just like that. So it's like 1 inch on either side of that dashed line. Then I want you to go up and mark 7 inches up. So where's my 7? There's 7 on the dashed line. So there, I want to make a point. And this is actually on parts of the dart. This is the dart apex, that tip where it ends. It's called the dart apex. And now I want you to through that line to this mark here, draw, and this one is a solid line. This is not dashed. It is a solid line. And then I want you to do the same over here. These are dart legs. This and this. And in pattern making, it's really important that those legs are the same if you're trying to do an even dart. We're going to look at what happens if they're kind of different, which on your hoodie, it looks like they're different. But we'll check that out when we get to sewing darts. Now I want you to lay your ruler like this so that we get 2 inches up. Make just a little dash. And then I want you to do it again right here on those lines. So now when you remove the ruler, you're going to put a dot there, dot there. Usually they're not solid dots on a pattern. They're usually a circle. They can be dots. Some still use the dots, but a lot of times they're circles. They may even be triangles that mark those points. And in dart world of making darts, they need to be the same distance apart. Like because we're going to match this one to this one, this one to this one when we're sewing. And so it needs to be at the same distance apart. And then we need them to be equal here and here to do a true dart pattern. Okay. So the other part that I want you to understand for a dart, there's 2 names yet. Down here is called the base. So out here, that's the base of the dart. This is the apex of the dart. These are the legs of a dart. And then this distance in here, that is the dart intake, or you might hear it dart return. Either one of those. That's what this distance in here that you're actually going to take up or take out, however you're looking at it, however your vocabulary wants to work there. Okay, so now we've drawn our dart that we're going to use to learn to do tailor's tacks. So if you hadn't had your fabric now, we want our right sides together. We want the 9-inch longer, 8-inch this way. And we're going to pin this on here as if this was our pattern that we had cut out. So I'm just going to put some pins out around the outer part of it so that it stays, since we don't have a true pattern piece going on, but I am going to pin it to here all the way through. Okay. Now, yes, you could come along, slide some tracing paper on both sides and trace it. The problem is a lot of times that, because it's a pretty heavy line, it can end up showing through, or maybe that tracing paper doesn't go away. And or it can be like some of our knits. If it's the loopy side, it doesn't really like to leave, especially if you have big loops on your French terry. It doesn't leave a very good line, and it kind of jumps around going over all those loose threads on the back. So we're going to learn the tailor's tack first, and then you can use the tailor's tack in a bunch of different ways. Okay, so to do that, we're going to cut quite a long piece of thread. I would say it's probably, it's a good yard of thread, which is only, of course, I get a knot right away, right? This is why I was just going to say, we're only using that much thread because we're doing tailor's tacking. If we were doing actual hand sewing, we would not ever pull that much thread off to work with for regular hand sewing. Okay. So now we're going to thread that into our needle here, like so. And you will hear this called making it a double strand. it's only one piece of thread that's in here, but you will learn in hand sewing that you usually never use double thread other than sewing on buttons, maybe some other fasteners, but everything else is done with a single thread. And what that means is you would thread your one piece through, but you'd always have a tail up here. You'd only be sewing with a single. So when they say double thread, they don't mean putting two pieces of thread in. They just mean putting one in long enough that you bring both of the cut ends down here, right? And we do not knot. We do not knot. No knot necessary in this to do your hand tailor. You just want to have this doubled up, double strand in the needle, no knot. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is we're going to mark the base dart points, okay? So what you do is you poke all the way through. It's gone. I'm just going to lift it up so you see. It's all the way through. And then we want to bring it back on the other side of the dot. So I'm going to pull, oops, see, didn't have it there. So let me get it so that it was even. It slipped and wasn't even. There we go. So do it one more time. All the way through. Make sure that it's all the way through. And I'm going to pull it and have this good 1.5 inches or so tail here laying there. Okay. Now I'm going to turn it a 90 degree, and on this side of the dart, I'm going to go all the way through and then come back up. And when I'm pulling this one, no, there we go. When I'm pulling this one, we also want to leave a loop. That is, and let me get these threads out of your way so you really can see that. Okay, so we have a nice long tail over there, and we have a nice long loop left here. Okay, loop left there, tail there, and now we are going to snip that one so it has another nice long tail, 1.5 inches or so of thread left over there. So basically, here's the structure of your tailor's tack, right? So I'm going to go ahead and do all of these to look like this, all right? So I'll meet you back there once I do that. Well, actually, I'll do one more through with you, and then I'll do them without the camera on so it doesn't take so long to do this. Okay, so all the way through, making sure it's all the way through, and we can check to make sure it is. Make sure that other one has a little cross there. Yeah, it was all the way through. Again, no knot in your thread, just lying loose. Okay, now I'm going to turn my needle 90 degrees from that one and go on the other side of the dot or the marking. Okay, and there he is, the loop. All right, so we've done 2 of them. Now I'm going to go ahead and do the others, and I'll meet you back. Okay, I'm back, and I have all 5 of mine put in. You can see the loop here on each of them. All right. Now, the first thing we do is we need to make it so that the pattern paper will come away. So that is this, cutting this loop first. So you're going to cut it, and now it will look like these 4 tails that hopefully you've left a big enough loop that you've got 1 inch to 1.5 inches there left. If it's shorter than that, you'll be sad because it will fall right out before you get to use it. So there we go. All right, now I've cut them all loose. So the next thing is we're going to unpin our pattern piece and gently remove the pattern off of those threads. And if you're watching me, I am holding those threads as I get to one so that they aren't disturbed. All right, now we have our thread mark which you may hear it called, but true thread marking is usually a line that you sew. And when it's these that look like this, it's usually called a thread tack or tailor's tacking, how they use that word for this kind of marking. Okay, so now how do we get it apart for both of them? So now I'm going to open up my two pieces, and as I come to the first set, I want to pull it a little bit so that I'm leaving some behind, but I'm not so short that they're coming out there. So here we go. And this is why you need the 1.5 inch tail. And usually once I've done that, I go ahead and I pull this back just a little bit. These stay pretty good because, see, they have the mark on the back. This one is totally loose, so you want to be aware of that. Some people will do more than just the 1, 2, 3, 4 threads. They'll do it several times to have more thread in it. That keeps the likelihood of it happening to stay there and not fall out before it's time to use it. There, see, one fell out on that one, but I still have enough saved there. So now I've got my 2 pieces of fabric. Here's the one that fell out with the correct things marked on it for a tailor's tack. There is a couple of other tricks that we do if we're going to mark the dart, but this is just the tailor's tack to show you how you could use this on anything. It doesn't have to be a dart only. It's wherever you've got a marking that you want to have a tailor's tack, instead of worrying about chalk that's going to fall away or worrying about a marker that's going to bleed through. So the tailor's tack is really a very simple and easy way to do a lot of marking. Okay, see you next time.